Joining us now from Bahrain is Ibrahim Nonu. He's the head of the Jewish community there, a former member of the Shura Council, and joining us from Manama, Bahrain. And Ibrahim, thank you so much for being with us on I-24 News. Tell us what it's like to be a Jew in Bahrain.
Well, B'Shem Hashem, first of all, and we are an indigenous group of Jews to Bahrain. And we're the only indigenous group of Jews in the whole Gulf. And of course, our history began at the latter part of the 19th century, when the Iraqi Jews found that there were jobs available in Bahrain, because Bahrain was a trading post between India and Europe. So there were jobs available in Bahrain, and that's why the Jews came to Bahrain. And they quickly managed to develop a very good business sense here. And they laid the foundation of very strong businesses. And then the community grew to roughly about 800 in the 1930s and 1940s. Of course, the most interesting fact is the fact that a member of the Cartier family, who used to be a pearl trader, who used to come to Bahrain buying pearls, he literally saw that the Jewish community didn't know much about their religion. So he decided to buy the land and build the synagogue on it for them. And that's exactly what he did. Unfortunately, in 1948 is when the situation, when the creation of Israel happened. That's when the Jews started leaving Bahrain.
Right. Now, despite the fact that it's now, as I said, a tiny community, just I think about 3 dozen, some of its members have played some quite prominent roles there. I believe your niece, Huda, she was the Bahraini ambassador to the U.S., and you were a member of the Shura Council. Describe to us what that role meant. Were you representing the Jewish community there? Did you play a larger role in the public life?
There is a seat in the upper house of parliament for the Jewish community. I was the first one to occupy that seat, followed on by Huda Nunu, and now it's occupied by Nancy Kaduri. But we're not strangers to those kind of positions, because my grandfather was the first Jew to be elected on the Manama municipality, which was an incredible feat, and that was going back in 1924. So it's wonderful to see how we've had those positions. But it's not strange to us. And of course, we're very, very much integrated with Bahraini society. And if I may just say, Bahrain has the most amazing measure of divergent religions and cultures in a very, very small area. And the way people go about life is to respect other people's religions and cultures. And the last year, we had Mr. Shlomo Amar come over to Bahrain for a dialogue, interfaith dialogue. And I took him to the synagogue and I walked him down the street, and he was absolutely thrilled to be able to do that over there, because he was a little bit nervous about, oh, is it safe to do so and all that? And I said, the Muslims have absolutely no issue with other people's religions. They, everybody to their own religion, and that is their motto, which is why I have so many friends from the Shiite background, from the Sunni background. They're very close friends.
Right. Now, so what does it mean for that Jewish community there, this establishment of ties, this normalization with Israel?
It's going to open the doors for us to be able to get kosher food, number one. And also, I might just about retire and sit in the synagogue the whole day, greeting visitors. That would be a lovely thing to do. But really, the skills that the Israelis have in terms of agriculture, fish farming, those might come in very, very handy for us here in Bahrain. So we're looking forward to a fruitful relationship, especially tourism as the number one element.
Right. Were you surprised this development happened? It seems to have been working up to that point in recent years, and we had that economic summit there last year. So how surprised are you that Bahrain finally made this step now?
Well, when we heard about the UAE, we realized, oh my goodness, Bahrain could be next. But it was a huge surprise to us, and we were greatly surprised but thrilled, absolutely thrilled with the news.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you have ties and friends in the Shiite community there in Bahrain, but we do know that that community has also ties or some members with, for example, Iran. There's maybe some mixed views here. What about the local reaction there in Bahrain to this normalization with Israel?
I imagine there's a lot of people who are not sure of what the future holds and what it'll mean. But I'm pretty certain that we've had Jews come to Bahrain before, and we will always have Jews coming to Bahrain again. So it won't really make that much difference. And to be honest, it's from talking to the people that I know, there is really no opposition to this.
Right. Now, there is a lot of speculation, Ibrahim, that Saudi Arabia, a country that has a big influence on Bahrain, in a sense may have given the green light for it to go ahead and make this step. From your perspective, from there in Bahrain, how likely do you see the pace of normalization between now Israel and Saudi Arabia develop?
I honestly see the Gulf as a single-handed entity. And they have to be like that. They really have to be. I mean, they created the customs union, which was great. And they really are a single-handed entity. And I've got a feeling that, when one party goes for it, the others will go for it as well at some stage. So we're all hoping that is the case.
Now, we mentioned your public life. I know you're also a businessman. Let's talk a little bit about business. I mean, how much we've talked, certainly the UAE, there's a lot of anticipation that is an economic powerhouse. What about Bahrain? How much economic opportunity not only is there for Israelis, but also on the side of Bahrain to be doing business with Israel?
You've got to look at it in terms of what Bahrain's going to produce in terms of oil. There are huge reserves here, and they're working on it right now. So we've got a very, very rosy future. Solar power is one of the key elements, huge projects coming up for that. But agricultural farming, because the government is very keen to have their food supplies locally available. So they will be trying very, very hard now to build up the agricultural supplies.
Right. I want to ask you, because there's a lot of, there is certainly a strong feeling that security concerns played a key role, both certainly for the UAE and Bahrain. I should mention, those who don't know, that's an island nation. You're sitting there, you're to one side of you, you have Iran, of course. How much do you feel, and that from your position there, those security concerns, especially vis-a-vis Iran?
It's always been there. I mean, we've ever since I've been born in Bahrain, we've always had Iran there. We used to go to Iran when we were kids, and we used to have a fabulous time there. Of course, 1979 changed all that, and a lot of our Jewish friends and relatives who used to live in Iran had to go and they settled down in the States. But Iran has always been there, and it's been one of those things that you're aware that it's there, but you're also aware that it's far away from you. So we don't really get into any sort of thoughts about that, because the people, as much as possible, stay away from talking about politics inside the country.
Well, that is certainly a perfectly understandable position, and I think you're correct. You're going to have to prepare yourself for a stream of Israelis coming there and visiting you in Bahrain, and I hope you find that a pleasure. And also, it makes it easier for you to come and visit Israel, maybe on some direct flights in the near future. And happy to host you here in the studio in Jaffa when you make your next trip. Ibrahim Nono, head of the Jewish community in Bahrain, thank you for joining us on I-24
Appreciate
News.
it.